We have seen the default connection mode for the SQL Server was import. In the previous session, we have seen that, and you have an option to select direct query. And apart from this, we have live connection mode. So there are three types of connection mode in Power BI when you connect to the different source system data. When it comes to the CSV files, JSON files, when you use the CSV file, what is CSV? Comma separated value files, or JSON files and Excel files. The only connection mode option is available. Only connection option is available is the import one. When it comes to SQL Server, or when it comes to database, or Oracle Server, Oracle is also another RDBMS software. SQL Server, Oracle, and Azure SQL Server. You have an option to use either import or direct query. In the case of SQL Server, Oracle, database, the default connection mode was import, and you have an option to choose either direct query or import. The default one is import for all the type of connection mode. Now we will explore what is the difference between these three different types of connection mode. First, we will start with understanding the import mode. What is import? See, when you use import to load the data into your Power BI desktop, what happens is the import data is copied to your report file itself, the .pbix file. Your report file extension is .pbix. This is what you have seen it. In the report file itself, the data will get copied. So in the case of direct query, the data will not get copied into your report file itself. Okay, and also we can use the dual connection mode. Dual connection mode. You can load few files into your Power BI desktop using import mode, or you can load few tables from your SQL Server into your report file itself, and some tables you can load it. So some tables you can connect it using direct query. So in the case of direct query, the data is not copied into your Power BI itself. Data will not copied into .pbix file itself. Whereas here in the import mode, the data will get copied into your .pbix file. Okay, so now the question is, when can I use import? When can I use direct query? In the case of direct query, the data will not get copied into Power BIX file itself. Then where the data will be there? For example, let's take the SQL Server. So this is my SQL Server. Okay, and this is my Power BI desktop. This is my Power BI desktop. And when I try to import a table by the name of sales fact, so in this case, let's say we have used direct query mode to read the data from my sales fact table, which is available in my SQL Server. This table is actually available in my SQL Server. So in this case, what happens is the data from this table will not get copied into this Power BIX file, okay, report file itself. Rather, what will happen is the Power BI desktop. See, in Power BI, we explored about the Power Query Editor, right? So the Power Query Editor, what it does is it generates a SQL query. That SQL query will be sent to your SQL Server. It will send the SQL query to your SQL Server. Okay, and then what happens is this query will get executed against this table into your SQL Server itself. This query will get executed into your SQL server itself against this table. Okay, the output of this query, SQL query output, only the SQL query output will be sent back to your Power BI desktop. Step 1 is, let's say in your report you wanted to use the sales fact table, but you have used the direct query mode. Okay, in the this is 1 2, right? So the direct query mode, in the direct query, we are talking about the direct query connection mode. So in this case, what happens is, in the Power BI desktop, you have used, you are trying to connect to the sales fact table, which is available in SQL Server using the direct query mode. You are doing it. In that case, what will happen? The Power BI desktop will generate the SQL query first step, and then it will get executed into your SQL Server itself, and then the output of the query will be sent back. Yeah, the first one is the query. Okay, the query will be generated and the query will be sent to the server. The query will get executed and the output of your SQL query will be sent back to your visual that you are using it in your, let's say you have a column chart. You are using a column chart. For this column chart, you are using something like sales and the year or something like that. Okay, year wise sales. Okay, so here you have plotted year and here you have sales. Okay, and okay, sorry, it should be like this: year and in the y-axis sales. These two values are coming from this table. Okay, so what happens is, when you create a visual, the visual, right, so will behind the scene, it will generate the SQL query, and then the query will be sent to your SQL server. The data will be received from your SQL server, and that one will get populated into your visual. Okay, that one will get copied here. Okay, this is what your correct direct query mode. So in this case of direct query mode, what will happen is, the first thing is the metadata of your table. What is the metadata? Your metadata of the table will get the table. What is the table? In this case is a sales fact. Sales fact will get copied here. Only the table definition will be there. Table name and the column names will be there, but the data will not get loaded here. Step 2 is, it will generate a SQL query and then it will send it to the SQL server, and the output of the query will be sent to your visual or so. Okay, so that is what is happening here. Okay, so now the question is, so what is the difference, exact difference between import and direct query? Why the hell should I use direct query? So rather I can import the data here itself. See, on a case-to-case basis, we need to decide. For example, if you wanted to travel from Chennai to Delhi, you will not go by your two-wheeler, or you will not go by your car, right? You will go by the flight to reach your destination faster, right? And if you want to go from your house to, let's say your house is in Thiruvanmiyur and you want to travel from Thiruvanmiyur to somewhere inside the city or Mylapore, you can go by two-wheeler, you can go by car. It makes sense. Similarly, on a case-to-case basis, we need to decide which option should I use it. For example, the Power BI falls under business intelligence category, right? So the business intelligence category, the Power BI tool. So in this case, we are talking about the dimensional model. Dimensional model. Don't worry about the what is dimensional model, all the things. So you have something like the dimensional model will have the combination of dimensional tables, and then fact tables. So most of the cases, the few dimensional tables, the volume of the data is less. If the data volume is less, then you can go for import. So less means how less? You have that question, right? You need to decide, you need to look at, you need to know that, right? So when you get into the requirements, or when you look at the design document, you will get to know that. See, as part of the software development life cycle, what we do is, first we will gather the requirement from the customers, and then what we do is we'll create the design document, and also we create the mock design of your report or the dashboard, and then we will share it with customer. If they are okay with that, we will go ahead and create the report. But in the design document, you will have all the business logics, okay, and which formula that I use it to create a new column, and how do I transform the data. All those information will be there, and also you will have the details of the volumetrics. So let's say hypothetically in this project you have 12 dimension tables are there, 12 dimensional tables are there, and 2 fact tables are there. 12 dimensional tables and 2 fact tables are there. Of these 12 dimensional tables, let's say hypothetically 6 or 7 dimensional tables are having less than 100k, right? Less than 100k records are there. 7 dimensional tables, you have less than 100k records are there. You can go ahead with import option. You can use the import connectivity mode. So you load this data into your Power BI desktop itself. Okay, what about the remaining 5 tables? That remaining 5 dimension tables, you can go for direct query because those 5 dimensional tables are having huge volume of data in it. For example, in the case of banking, you have a dimension called customer dimension. The customer dimension table will have a unique record for each customers. Okay, the customer and customer account number, and the date of account opening date, and all the things will be there in that. Only and then his address, customer address, contact number, all the things will be there. So customer information will be there. Okay, and then in the fact tables, what all the transactions made by the customer, that will be there in your fact tables. This is a detailed one. So let's last 10 days, if you see, let's say the customer John, okay, and last 10 days of, if you try, he's a businessman. If you see last 10 days of his business, let's say he's running a e-commerce site. Last 10 days of his transaction, if you see it, let's say per day 1 million, 10 million records will be there, right? 10 million transaction would have happened. That transaction related data, we store it in the fact table. You just think that way, okay? So and right, since for this single customer itself, 10 days data itself, it comes around 10 million records. And if you take let's say your customer base is 10 million records, right? So 10 million into on an average, if you put 2 million records, right, or 0.2 million records, it will comes, it will be like a very huge volume, right? So your fact tables will have huge volumes in it. In that case, there is no point in importing the data of your fact tables into your Power BI desktop itself. Another example is customer dimension. So you have 10 million customers are there, right? So 10 million records are there, or let's say in the case of Citibank, 25 million customers are there. If you import the 25 million customers data into your Power BI desktop, it will take a lot of time, and the report time will take longer time. For example, you have used a column chart, a pie chart, donut chart, and you have tree map. All these visuals, you are using the customer dimension fact table data to populate these visuals. It will take a lot of time. So better what you do is, let the data be there wherever it is. Simply send the query, and then the output of the query will, if this one, the output of the query, if this one sent it back to my visual, that is more than sufficient. It is something like that. I just give a simple analogy. For example, this is Bangalore. You just think this is Bangalore, and this is Chennai. You are in Chennai. So, one manager is there. Okay, here only one manager is there. Whereas in Bangalore, the entire project members, they are sitting there. 50 members are there. Okay. And if you, just because one manager is in Chennai, is it really makes sense to send all the 50 employees to Chennai and work there? If you send the 50 employees to Chennai, what will happen? So these guys, let's assume that these guys are from different parts of India, and you need to provide accommodation in the worst case, okay? And you need to give the accommodation, you need to bear the travel expenses. 50 people travel expense accommodation, it is quite a lot of money. Instead, if you send a manager, one person to this place, what will happen? The cost is very less, right? The same thing is principle is applicable here. Instead of bringing the entire data here, simply generate the query and then send it here, send the output only to this one, to my visual, right? That is the idea here. So direct query, okay. And the import is, you need to decide 7-dimensional table volumes are less, and hence I'm going to import it into my Power BI desktop. And some tables, like remaining 5 tables and 5-dimensional tables and remaining 2 fact tables, I'm going to connect it to the SQL server using direct connectivity mode in the interest of performance. See, you just assume that in the fact table you have point 2 or let's you have 500 million records are there. 500 million records are there. To import, if you use the import mode, what will happen? 500 million records have to be imported from here to here. Something like downloading a big file. Alright? If you download a big file, what will happen? So downloading itself takes 7 hours or 10 hours. But managers wanted to see the report in a matter of 1 hour or 2 hours. There are some reports, obviously it will take some time, 1 hour, 2 hours. But if you say no, to download the data itself it will take 7 hour time, and then to populate the data it will take additional 2 to 3 hours. No one will accept. Okay, we have nowadays something called SLA. I'm not going to talk about it, right? So everything has to happen within the defined timeline. Got it? Okay, fine. Now you understood the difference between import mode and direct connectivity mode at a high level. And also I have explained you when you can go for import connectivity mode, when you can go for direct connectivity mode. You have understood the difference. Okay, now let us take a deep dive in understanding import. When I use the import connectivity mode, what is happening behind the scene? Okay, and the other question is, does import is faster or direct query is faster? The import is the clear winner. Okay, import is faster, but as I told you, as a case-to-case basis, we can see. See, if the volume of the data is very high, then go for direct query. It is faster. If the volume of the records are less, the import is better. But compared to all these 3 options, import is the clear winner. It is much faster. Why it is much faster? For example, this is my SQL server table. Let's my table is dimension, location. There is a table called location table is there. Okay, and in this table I have close to 100k records are there, and this is my Power BI desktop. Okay, I have opened a report file. Let's say when I use the import mode to load the data here into my Power BI desktop itself, what will happen is this data will get loaded into my Power BI desktop memory. Okay, the desktop memory. So what happens is in the import connectivity mode, this data 100k, which is nothing but 1 lakh records, right? 1 lakhs. So this data will get loaded into Power BI desktop itself. So in this case, what will happen is this 100k records, right? 100k, let's say 1 lakh records put together. Let's you get 1 GB. The file size is 1 GB, and the 1 GB file, the 100,000 records will get copied into the local Power BI desktop. And then what it does is smartly, we have something called Vertipack. There is an engine called Vertipack in Power BI. So this is nothing but a software which is running at the back end. Okay. So what this one does is, when you connect to import mode, Vertipack, what it does is, it will simply convert your table data into columnar data. So this is one of the questions asked, from my recent student who cleared the interview. So the table data got the table data, the tabular data got converted, okay, into columnar data. So why it should convert the tabular data? It's actually the dim location is a table. It is there in my SQL server. Why? When I use the import mode, it should convert the tabular data into columnar data because of the performance. The performance will be much faster. So how the performance is faster, I'll explain a little later. Second one is the Vertipack engine. What it does is, the next step what it carries out is, it will compresses the data. It compresses this data, and third step is it loads the data into memory. Load this compressed data into memory. Anything which is available in the memory, you take any software program, this is the common phenomenon. You need to remember this one. Anything which is available in your memory, it is much faster. You have something called Spark. In Hadoop, we have something called Spark. Spark software became very popular because it is in memory. If anything is available in memory, the performance is faster. For example, let's say you have a very close friend. If I ask you your close friend contact number, you will tell me in a matter of jiffy, right? Because you remember he or her number quickly because he's a very close friend of you. You remember it because, or let's say if I ask your dad's number, or mom's number, right? Everyone knows mom's and dad's number, right? You will tell fat because it is there in your memory. Or if I ask your colleague's name, right? So listen, you have a colleague, her name is Purnima. If I ask you, can you tell me your colleague Purnima name? She is not your friend, but she is your colleague. And what you will say? I have her number, but I need to check. Give me some time. You go to your mobile phone, search it, and then you take it. So the same principle is applicable here. When anything is in memory, it will be faster. If it is not in the memory, if it is there in the hard disk, what will happen is, to read the data from your hard disk, it has to go and search where the data is, the relevant data is there, and then it has to read the data and then load it into memory. It will take more time. If anything is available in memory, it is faster. That is the reason why they developed something called Vertipack, a piece of code, or this is called engine. Okay, this is the driving force behind your Power BI desktop, or this is the workhorse. This is the workhorse, in your Power BI desktop. It carries out 3 steps. In the import mode, it will convert your tabular data into columnar data, and then it compresses the data, and then load this data, compressed data, into memory. Since it compresses the data, it will not consume too much of memory. It will consume less memory. This is a beautiful thing, isn't it? Now let us take a quick look at why it has to convert the tabular data into columnar data. See, in the case of RDBMS system, let's assume that the dim location table has, hypothetically, you have 70 columns are there. Let's assume that 70 columns are there in this table. But you are not going to use all 70 columns. All you need is just 6 to, let's say, 8 columns from this table. Though you wanted to read only the 8 columns, what will happen is, in the case of tabular data, it will go and check, because let's say you want the data from only 8 columns, but those 8 columns are not sequentially available in this column. What do you mean by sequential? First column, second column, third column, not like that. Okay, you need the first column, you need the 8th column, you need the 59th column, something like that. Okay, so you need the 8 columns to be retrieved out of these 70 columns. In that case, what will happen is, you are behind the scene. If you use the tabular data, right, it will go and check the first column. Hey, the location name is there. The first column is at location name. No, it has to skip this one, and it has to go to the second column. Is this a location name? No. And then it has to go to the third column. Yes, location name is there. Okay, and then if it's effective date, effective start date, end date, it will go. And so to find out the relevant 8 columns, it has to go and search it, and he has to skip it if the column is not relevant. The searching the column and skipping the column will take a lot of time in the case of tabular data, whereas in the case of columnar data, each column stored separately in your database. Okay, supposing you want to see, let's this is a fact table. You have something like location key is there, and then you have something like customer key is there, and then you have sales is there. You want to see specific customers. The south, let's this is instead of saying location key, region. Okay, region key. The south region, all the customers sales, I want to see it. So in that case, what will happen is the request will go to directly to this column, region. Okay, so here it will go and check, oh, this is my south region. Okay, it will go and select this one, and then what will happen is all the south region customers, it will get filtered here. Let's say in the south region you have 10,000 customers are there, it will go and filter the 10,000 customers, and then these 10,000 customer related sales only will get filtered or grouped. So in this case, what will happen is it goes directly to this table and it's a column, and it goes directly to this column, and it goes directly to this column. You need region wise, customer wise sales, or you want to see the sales breakdown by region, by customer. It goes directly to these 3 columns. There is no need to go and search each and every column because you stored each and every column separately. That is what your columnar database. Columnar data. Now you understood, right? The search time is bit faster. Not bit, it's very faster in the case of columnar data. That's the reason why the Vertipack engine convert your tabular data into columnar data, and then it compresses the data. The search time is much faster, and then the retrieval time is also faster, and then it compresses the data and it loads the compressed data into memory. Okay, so let's say the south region customers sales data, right? It comes closer to 1 GB. Okay, and then what will happen is it will not, since it is compressing the data, it will not be 1 GB, maybe it will be like 100 MB. Entire file size will get reduced here when it comes to Power BI desktop. Okay, this 10 MB data will get loaded here. Will be this, the compressed data will have only 10 and 100 MB. If you load this 100 MB into memory, it will just consume your just 100 MB. Let's say you have 8 GB RAM. You have if you load just 10 to 100 MB, still you are left with a lot of space in your memory, right? Hope you understood. Vertipack, what is the role of Vertipack? It plays a significant role in the case of import. But when it comes to direct query and live connection, Vertipack will not do anything. Okay, it doesn't have any control. This is applicable only for the import mode. The Vertipack will get, it will wake up in the case of import, and then it does these 3 tasks behind the scene. That's all. Okay. Whereas in the case of direct query, it will not going to happen. So now you understood when I do the import, what is happening behind the scene. And for another thing you need to keep in mind is a limitation. So when it comes to Power BI desktop, let's say let's say the file size is 2 GB. After compression, if your file size is 1.2 GB, it will fail. The limitation is 1 GB per file. You can store only 1 GB data into your Power BI desktop. You cannot store more than 1 GB. In the case of the Power BI, the normal version. Okay. But if you want to store more than 1 GB into your Power BI desktop, in your Power BI cloud service and all, right, you need to go for the Pro license or premium license. In the case of premium license, we can store more than 15 GB per file. You can store 50 GB size of more than 50 GB size of the data for each file. If you have 100 tables, each table we can store more than 15 GB worth of data into your Power BI service. Okay, so it depends on the license. If you pay more cost, you will get more flexibility. Okay, the limitations will be lifted. Got it? So, okay, I discussed all the important points. Now you understood what is the difference, exact difference between these two, and the internal mechanics of import also you understood. The next one is live connection. The live connection, the data will get connected. So your Power BI desktop will directly connect to your live system. But when it comes to live connection, what happens is the in Power BI, the live connection is supported only for the three different sources. One is live connection. Okay, I just close this. Otherwise, it will be clumsy. In this case, live connection. The live connection is supported only for the SQL server analysis. Even Abhijit, when he attended the interview, they asked him the different types of storage mode. This is also called as storage mode, different types of storage mode, and what is Vertipack, all things they asked him. Okay, and the live connection is supported only for the SQL server analysis. In the SQL server analysis, you have something called tabular and multi-dimensional. This is one source it supports, and the other one is in the case of live connection, it shows the Power BI cloud service. Power BI cloud service. Yeah, so here I mentioned SQL server analysis, this kind of tabular and multi-dimensional, these two things, okay. And right, so tabular is SQL server analysis, tabular is one, and second one is SQL server analysis multi-dimensional, third one is Power BI cloud service. Only for these three source systems, live connection will work. The live connection is also similar to direct query. So in a way that it works with it source data itself. It will not store the data in Power BI. And it will query data source every time. However, it is slightly different from direct query. Okay, because it supports only these three sources. Okay. These data sources like SQL server analysis, tabular, multidimensional, or modeling engine themselves. So Power BI only connect to these things and fetch all model metadata. What is metadata? The table name, column name, and then the relationship, those things. Okay, with this method or approach, right? It can handle all modeling requirements. You can handle all the modeling in the data source. Okay, and the Power BI just surface that data through the visualization. Okay. The another when it comes to advantages and disadvantages, you understood import is much faster because the Vertipack engine, it does those three tasks behind the scene, compressing the data, all the things, right? And the import is faster. The another advantage with import is import mode, you can use it for any type of data sources, the Excel file or JSON file or database, SQL Server, Oracle. Import mode is available for all type of sources, whereas direct query is available only for the limited sources like Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, Azure SQL Server, and then Teradata. That's all. Okay, it will not work with all the RDBMS softwares. For example, it is not working with MySQL. MySQL Server, it is not working. With direct query is not available. Okay, and that kind of limitation is on top. With the import, when you connect to any data set using import, you can use all Dax functions, all the Dax related functions. Okay, all the Dax functions. Don't worry, using Dax functions you can perform advanced analytics. That one we will see it a later point in time. It is too early to discuss about that. Okay. And then this one, the Dax function, you can use all Dax functions in import mode. Okay, all Dax functions, and even the Power Query editor, right? Power Query editor, you can perform all kind of data transformation. Whereas in the case of direct query, you can use only the limited number of Dax functions. function, and also you can perform limited number of data transformation using Power Query Editor. Got it? Limited number of Dax functions only you can use it when you connect to direct query, and also limited number of the data transformation or reshaping the data. You can do it with the Power Query Editor. But any complex data transformation you cannot do it using direct query. When it comes to live connection, you can use the majority of Dax functions. Most of the Dax functions are available, but you cannot do any data transformation using Power Query Editor. Using Power Query Editor. My handwriting should be improved. Editor. Okay, in the data transformation, you cannot use Power Query. That feature is not available with live connection, but you can use Dax function. But here also there are limitations. But compared to direct query, you can use majority of the Dax functions. But this one, right? You cannot do any data transformation. Okay, now the question is, compared to import and direct query, import is faster, and compared to all these three mode, right? Import is faster. Okay, but direct query is faster in the case of the volume of the data is very high. And now compared to direct query and live connection, I made a statement. This is also live connection is also somewhat similar to direct query because it goes and query the data from your source system itself, right? The live connection and direct query, both of them are somewhat similar, but the live connection is still faster than your direct query. Okay, and we have something else called composite mode. Composite mode, already I discussed it. Composite mode. The composite mode, you can use both import as well as direct query, right? In your data set, direct, you can use the both, right? So that is what called as composite mode. See, these guys, they use different jargons. When you talk to American customers, we most of the time work with Americans only. You know very well, in India, all the software companies, we are getting projects, majority of the projects we are getting from Americans only. When you talk to Americans, they use different terms. That's the reason why I use these terms. I want you to be composite mode is nothing but the dual mode. Fine, now you understood clearly the difference between these three. And the next one is, look here, they will ask you in the direct query which all database it will be supported: SQL Server, Azure SQL Database, and Teradata, Oracle, SAP, and all. At least you can tell few names, okay? And no support for data transformation or modeling. But in the latest version, you can do data transformation some extent, okay? And modeling you cannot do. Yeah, this is important. So you remember in the Power BI desktop, okay, the last one is modeling, right? You cannot do modeling when you connect with your data, the direct query mode. Unlimited support for data transformation and modeling. See here, there is a mistake here. No support for here, but here limited support. Okay, there is a contradicting thing. Ignore this one. Limited support data transformation and no modeling. Okay, in direct query. A live connection does not store a second copy of the data into the memory. Data will be kept in the data source. Visualization will query the data source every time from Power BI. See, in the case of live connection, what happens is in the second copy of the data into the memory does not store a copy, second copy. See, in the live connection, the data is already cached in the memory. For example, in the case of multi-dimensional AS multi-dimensional, right? The data already cached in the memory. So in that case, what will happen is, since the live connection, right, go and connect to the source database like the direct query mode, but the data of your source system live connection data, right, is available in memory there itself. Hence, it is faster. Data will be kept in the data source. Visualization will query the data source every time from Power BI. So now the question is, can you all please answer this one? In which place Power BI desktop data being stored? In which place the Power BI desktop data being stored? The Power BI import mode, right? In the case of import mode, the data is copied to the copy to the report itself. Now, what is the difference between import and direct mode? We already discussed. What is composite mode? It's the hybrid of both import as well as the direct query. In which connectivity mode is faster, direct query or live? Of these two, live is faster. Got it? Okay, fine. So now you understood all these three different types of storages. We discussed about import, direct query, and live.